All right, I'd like to call the open session for Benicia Unified School District Board meeting for September 5th to order. So let's begin if we can. I'd like to start with the report out on closed session. We have a litigation decision to be reported out, so Mrs. Jensen, please.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the recommendation of the settlement agreement.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the settlement agreement as proposed.
Second?
Second.
All right, this needs to be a roll call vote?
No, all in
Okay,
favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the settlement is passed. Okay, with that said, we will please all stand and join me in the pledge.
I knew that.
Just tell us, right or left. All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. That's not a good start. Okay. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the agenda as written, please.
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
All in favor, a second, please.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Okay, Dr. Young, we are going to move on to you for our highlight tonight.
Thank you very much. So this is the time of the board meeting where we take an opportunity to recognize the many wonderful things that are taking place throughout our school district. And it's a school district, obviously, that we have great pride in. And tonight, we're welcoming Principal Dalsky and the new assistant principal, they're both new, Ms. Shaw, to the podium. And they're going to share some of the wonderful things that are taking place at Benicia Middle School. So welcome.
Thank you. All right, good evening. I'm so very excited. I have Ms. Shaw here with me as well. Unfortunately, Ms. Huntington couldn't join us this evening. So I know I speak on behalf of our administrative team when I say we're so thrilled to kick off this school year. Our focus is to know our kids early and often. We want our kids to feel included, connected to our school community, and we're going to use this lens through all the professional learning that we do this year and our work together. So I wanted to share a few snapshots of the kickoff of the school year, since it's still pretty early on. A couple of these images. So this group that you see is 2 years ago, 6th graders. So there are current 8th graders. And what's fun about this photo is it's the very first, couple weeks of school. This is the 6th grade dance, and that is next week for our 6th graders. And it is just a fun time. And there's about 70 of those 6th graders who have returned as 8th grade web leaders. And we're really proud of our web program. That's our 8th grade mentors. And they're the ones who lead our 6th grade orientation. They do things with our 6th graders all year long. So we're really excited about that. All right, so every year, this is a tradition. A couple of the teachers in the audience here participate in this tradition of rolling out the red carpet. And so even amongst the construction, we just adjust it a little bit. We push the carpet out and just put it right on top of the dust. And because we still, despite some of those obstacles, we wanted our kids to feel welcomed and like they were just walking down the red carpet to something new and exciting. And so that's always a fun time because we have music playing, a lot of teachers come out and the kids returning, with their new haircuts, and it's really fun. And then down in the left-hand corner is our office staff, and we have an amazing office staff. I'm so thrilled to have this new administrative team. Now I'm moving from vice principal. I've served as vice principal for the past 8 years, and so I'm really excited to support our school and all of our students and our teachers as principal. All right, so this next image, I thought it was just amazing. So I was walking through classrooms last week, and I went through Miss Van Amson's 6th grade English class. And the kids were all moving around. They had their Chromebooks out, and they were taking pictures of themselves with the Chromebook. And so I asked some of the kids what they were doing, and they said, "We are making the Humans of BMS book." And so I said, "Well, what's that all about?" And Miss Van Amson shared it's from a book written by Brandon Stanton, The Humans of New York. And so that's a photograph collection series where they just took photos of everybody in different walks of life, the streets of New York, and then asked the people, tell us a couple things about yourself that maybe we wouldn't know from the photographs. And so that's what the kids did. And we all asked them, do you mind? We shared these, and they didn't mind at all. And so these are just things that you might not know with, just looking at their photo. So the humans of BMS. All right, so this is next week. This is our 6th grade dance. And in the center are the invitations. And this is just one of the highlights of our web program. They write a personalized invitation to every single 6th grader. They walk it out during directed studies and hand deliver them to the 6th graders to invite them. And then you can see, again, this is 2 years ago. So they are our current 8th graders. They're busting a move down there in the corner at the 6th grade dance. And it's just so much fun. And so I just wanted to share some of these pictures of what happens the very first couple of weeks of school, because it all goes back to building these relationships at BMS. And it's relationships between the kids, to other kids for sure, but definitely our focus is from adult to children, children to adults. And so just wanted to make sure we highlighted that work this year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindy. I also just want to add to your Venetia back to school night, and I know several of us were there. It was absolutely wonderful. In spite of the construction, the detours, all the cones going in all different directions. Actually, there were lots of positive comments going on that night, and your teachers and the kids were doing a great job. So thank you. Oop, I lost my speaker here. So now we're going to move on to reports, and I'm going to turn to our students first. So ladies, you introduce yourself, please, and your school.
Hi, my name is Ireland Ingle, and I'm a representative for Liberty High School. Okay. Good evening, Board President Frucci, fellow trustees, Superintendent Dr. Young, and cabinet members. Liberty High School is off to a great start. We had a wonderful turnout for back to school night, and we would like to thank all those from the school district and the board that came out to support us. We have worked on strengthening our school community and had our first Heart and Spark Fest. Advisory classes decorated doors and competed in team building activities. Mr. Winder's class won. We will be going to Oakland A Sports Career Education Day on September 18th. We have several learning through interest walks already in works based on student input. We'll be visiting local sustainable gardens, vet hospitals, and visit people in the trades. On behalf of Liberty High School, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maddie Brangan. I'm the ASB Vice President. So it's September and it's Suicide Awareness Month. At the high school, our school's providing a documentary that we will be showing, I think, probably in our access periods. And it's called The S Word. It's for students to watch to open up about the topic of suicide. And we will have professionals coming onto campus during this time to provide information about it and advice. Sources of Strength started back today. Today we talked about our goals of the school year and what we plan to do. Next month is National Bullying Prevention Month. So we'll be wearing orange on October 23rd for Unity Day. Later this month, we have a community event, which is a free screening of a movie called Finding Kind, which is another anti-bullying documentary. Our sports seasons, our fall sports have just started. Basketball meeting is on September 5th. Cross country, the first practice was on August 12th. Our volleyball season has started and football season has started. Our first home game is next week. 5:30 for JV and 7 for varsity against Sutter High School. And then this year we started a new Chromebook distribution of a 1-to-1 ratio. So students all have their own Chromebook and we've been bringing it to class every day. And teachers are implementing new teaching plans to transition into paperless learning.
I'll just transition to me now. My name is Lauren Kalika. I'm the ASB president of the student body. Just following up, today was our first class meetings. We talked about homecoming, our Panther Pride week next week. I'll talk a little bit more on that and what's to come in this next school year. A student forum was today as well. Me and Principal Kleinschmidt both headed it. And we wanted to do a new type of student forum instead of having an open forum during lunch where like barely anyone went to. We transitioned to an access and had one representative or two representatives from each access class and presented their concerns from their access class, and it went really well. A lot of student participation, and we heard a lot of concerns on their school and how we can better improve it. Band camp is also this weekend, and Panther Pride Week will start next week. Monday's PJ Day, Tuesday's Neon Day, Wednesday for 9/11 is Patriot Day, Thursday will be class colors, and Friday's blue and gold for our senior sunrise, which is in the morning that Friday, and our blue and gold Panther Pride student section. I'm sorry about that. Student section for that home game. So back to school night will also start next Thursday. It will be at 7. And then next Saturday, the 14th, Venetia High School will have its band paint night fundraiser. September 16th, improv team will have their auditions just to start the school year. Also our Panther Pride Color Vibe Run, which is a community event. I encourage you all to go. It will be on September 21st. And we also, this year, we're implementing a high school voter registration week. We think it's very important for high schoolers to get registered and be able to vote. That will be on September 23rd to the 27th. During that week as well, we'll have the blood drive, when we're pairing up with the Venetia Public Library on this one as well. So it's more bigger event on the 26th. And lastly, the club fair will be on the 27th to just set off for the school year.
What was the run on September 21st?
September 21st will be our color run. Yeah, it will be on the Venetia High website, and you can register.
Excellent. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Wow. Well done.
Okay, thank you, ladies, for great information and for doing a great job. Okay, we are going to move on to the superintendent's report at this time.
Very good. Just a few things to share. We had the first BEF meeting of the year. Ms. Zeta and I had an opportunity to attend. Great group, lots of energy. A new parent moved into the president role, Alex Poole. So our BEF Parent Foundation continues to do great work on behalf of the school districts. Thank you to them. I'm sure trustees will probably comment on the back to school nights for elementary and middle, which were wonderful. They were very well attended. The teachers were awesome as always, and the schools looked so good. It was so much fun, and I'm so corny, but when I was driving home, I was thinking of that musical Camelot, and just kind of made me feel very positive about the place. So it was a great night for middle and elementary schools, so very happy with that. A quick update on PBIS. We continue to do that work, and I wanted to share recognition with you really quick. That's a positive behavior intervention system that Joe Henderson Elementary School Farmer and Matthew Turner were recognized for successful PBIS implementation at the silver level. And to acknowledge this honor, the school's name will be displayed on the California PBIS Coalition webpage and posted at the 4th Annual California PBIS Conference in Sacramento. So that's a big deal, and we're proud of that work, and we appreciate that recognition. A couple other things I'd like to recognize. We have this ongoing focus on literacy in the district. We'll talk more about that as the school year goes on, but I'd like to recognize Matthew Turner, because the PTA sponsors a program there for the last 4 years. Dr. Beetson, I'm sure, was involved in that. This program's design was to encourage reading by students and families and to promote a shared reading experience. Every family and employee from Matthew Turner is offered a book, from TK to the custodians to our SPAs to our teachers. Even our visiting music, PE, and district coaches are given the book. They were honored this year by the Read to Them company, which provides the program as School of the Year. And they were chosen from a list of 500 schools across the United States that take part in that program.
Awesome.
So It's a nice recognition of our continued focus on literacy. Also, Ms. Dalsky, is she still here? She's not, but I wanted to recognize her because I believe she filled out the application and was awarded this grant called Callie Reads. And what Callie Reads is, it promotes middle school literacy for students, and they'll receive an ongoing literacy coaching, professional development, and system support for participating in middle school teachers and administrators, as well as annual funds to help with literacy. So we're excited about that. Congratulations to them in that effort. Last night, Dr. Beatson and I and Ms. Rice put on the first of probably many meetings in this literacy campaign that we're engaging in within the district as part of one of the block grant goals that all students will be reading at or above grade level by the 3rd grade. So last night we had the first meeting to engage the city around what it would look like for us to partner with them to promote literacy and reading in the district. And we had a great turnout. The city manager was there, Ms. Tinfro, Eric Upson, the chief of police was there, another city council person was there. It was wonderful. So Ms. Ferrucci was there, so we had a great night. So we'll report back to that as when we go forward. And then I got it. Thank you. I got it. Thanks. I get good reminders on both sides. Usually Dr. Beatson's writing me notes. Is everybody getting the same? It totally. I wanted to share real quick too, as part of literacy and also part of our work around multicultural sensitivity and diversity and working with all of our students. I had a question. I asked the librarian Amber Kelly at the middle school at the end of last year, and I asked Megan, the librarian at the high school, what's the #1 book that kids read? I was just curious. And at both schools, at the middle and high school, hands down, this book was the most popular read book, The Hate You Give. I had not read it. And so that intrigued the heck out of me because I was wondering, why is this book so interesting to kids? There's a very good film made after it. So I brought it back. Dr. Beatson and I talked about it, and we found it so intriguing that what we did is we elected the management team to read it, and each year the management team will read 1 or 2 books, typically nonfiction about leadership. But this is our first fiction that we read together, and it was very powerful to read about the themes and the concepts in the book and how it can inform our role as leaders. And for me as a superintendent, I was really curious why the book is so interesting to students. What does that tell us as adults? So we had a good conversation about that. So that's a good experience for us. So anybody, you have lots of copies of it. If any of the trustees would like to read it, there you go. It's a very, very powerful book. All right. We have them, don't we? All right.
We want to join the book club. There you go.
All right. And the last thing that I would like to do is, good. There's lots of copies. Here's okay. So the last thing I would like to do, anytime we hire a new administrator into the leadership team, we have a practice of bringing them forward and recognizing them. And I would like to read about this individual that we're very delighted to have on our team. And his name is Dwight Rodgers. He's our new assistant principal at the high school. If you could come to the podium, and we'll ask you to introduce yourself, but I'd like to read a little bit about you first. So come on forward.
Go forward. We get to embarrass you. There you go.
So Dwight Rodgers comes to us with over 25 years of experience as an educator, and much of it was influenced by his passion for mental health. He worked for 14 years as a director of discipline and attendance in Southern California, and prior to that, he was a program director principal for a non-public school. He served in both the Air Force, thank you, and the California National Guard. He completed a tour in Iraq during the Gulf War, and that changed his life, and he shared a little bit of that with me. Most recently, he held a position as an assistant principal in the Fairfield School District. Mr. Rodgers has children in college. His son is pursuing his master's degree at the University of Greensboro, North Carolina, and his congratulations. And his daughter is in her final year at Cal State Stanislaus, where she is working towards her bachelor's in nursing. So congrats. His hobbies include traveling to tropical climates, working out, and most things that involve relaxing the mind. This year, Dwight Rodgers plans to spend the majority of his time working with many students, families, and teachers as possible to ensure a smooth transition. Dwight shared that he is truly honored to be given this opportunity and looks forward to immersing himself into our community. And we're very delighted you're here, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, again, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here. Since day one, Benicia has just shown me so much love and appreciation. It's been overwhelming. The students, when you speak to them, they speak back in polite fashion. The staff members, everyone from the district on down, have just been overwhelmingly just kind. And that's the start. That's the start of building those relationships, just being kind to someone. And I plan to take that and move forward with it as much as possible. And so I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to be here.
Thank you.
Well, again, you're welcome. Okay, so, Mr. Rodgers, every new administrator has to take a picture with the board. So I'm going to ask you to come to the center. And I'm going to invite all of my colleagues to come on
baby.
down.
Good reminder.
Okay, while we're getting settled to our wonderful high school representatives, if you would like to leave right now, you can be dismissed, so you can get home and do some homework for school tomorrow.
Thank you.
But tomorrow's Friday. Okay, and now we're going to move on to our board reports. I think as a board, we've had a pretty whirlwind start, and I think we've all been out and around and busy and running. So if somebody would like to start with all the things we've been doing.
Okay, come on. I had the opportunity to, well, first I want to say the back to school event was like so amazing for me when all the teachers and staff, everybody was together. I was so happy when I left. I hadn't experienced anything like that in a long time as an educator. And when I started my school year, it was nothing like that. So, so I really appreciated the positive energy. I had the chance to go to back to school at Mary Farmer. I loved it. Not Mary Farmer, I'm sorry. It was at Joe Henderson. And it was so wonderful that the classrooms were so inviting. It was really hot that day, so I'm really glad the air conditioning was on. But it was a lot of fun. And also, I had a chance to go in the tail end of to Liberty. So I hadn't even been in Liberty before. I love the building. I love the floors. It was very welcoming for the students and families. So just really appreciated that.
And before we go down the bench there, I just wanted to congratulate you, Dr. Moss.
Thank you.
Gethsemane defended her dissertation last week. So.
Thank you. I do want to share one other thing. One of your graduates from 2016, a young lady by the name of Gabriella Johnson, she was in a draft for a Women's Football League Association and landed a $5 million contract.
Whoa.
And she is my daughter, so I wanted to say
that. So we're going to be with the rich and famous now.
Oh, nice.
How exciting. It was quite a week.
You're going to stay on the board, right?
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
All right. Okay, Mrs. Zeta?
That's really hard to follow.
I know. Sorry.
I too was really impressed with all the back to school nights that we've attended. I want to thank all the administrators and the teachers for just doing such a great job getting their classrooms ready and ready to be with the kids. And the kids were excited at some of the schools we were at. And it was very just wonderful. Secondly, I just started to attend, it's called Tending in the Garden, and it's being held at SCO, you all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's called Tending the Garden, and it's it's over 8 months, and it's once a month, and we learn different things that we can bring back to our staff and our teachers to help them. This particular month was about educator wellness. And we just learned a whole lot of different things that you guys can use towards getting your students relaxed. If you guys are relaxed as teachers or as educators, and you guys are able to show that you're relaxed, your students will react better sometimes to somebody that's just high stressed all the time. So it was really interesting. I shared with Dr. Young this paper that we got called 80 Ways to Share 10 Wellness Principles, and hopefully you'll be able to send that out at some point. And then they also had mentioned these wellness centers that are now popping up in different school sites. And there's been money that has come in, and there'll be an application process available to all schools that want to apply. And I'm hoping that we can kind of run with that as well. So that's all I have to say for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Maselli.
I was able to visit back to school night at Roberts Temple, and it was very enjoyable. I ran into Dr. Beatson, and we walked around and had a very good time. Seen a lot of great classrooms, meet a lot of great teachers, and very positive vibes all the way around. It was very nice.
Yay. Dr. Hovey.
We had the pleasure, the whole group of us almost, of breaking up into teams and visiting schools on opening day. And it was really amazing to go from school to school and see both the unique features of each school, as well as how excited and energized the staff and the children were to get back to school. So thank you to all of you for doing the work to put all of that together, and for letting us interrupt you when even we were trying not. In addition to opening day, I also had the pleasure of I have joined the board along with Diane for the community refinery relationship with Valero, and so their team took me on a tour of the facility so I could better understand the items that we were talking about, and I was very impressed by all their safety measures. We actually have the newest refinery in the country with the highest level of safety ratings, and so it was good to be able to learn those things and see those things and feel better prepared to make sure we're representing our organization and our students well in that discussion. There are a number of fundraisers going on to rebuild Fitzgerald Field, which is a really popular place for all of our students to play baseball. And so I've been working on those with some of the community. Attended Liberty Back to School Night and was thrilled to see the parents and students come out, and the teachers really engaging in very in-depth conversation with those families about how credits work and how to work together as a team to be successful, and to see those teachers be so caring and warm to those families and answer every possible question that they could come up with. I'm sorry, Kim had stepped out because I wanted to make sure she heard that, but it was a wonderful evening, and I'm really pleased that Liberty is making such huge strides forward. Lastly, both Diane and I attended the Labor Day breakfast this past week with all of our union communities, and it was very interesting and engaging to hear the list of politicians that were there to share their updates. So it was appreciative of being able to join that group as well.
Okay, so thank you, because you shared a few, so that's good. And I just wanted to say thank you. The school that I had for the back to school night this year was Matthew Turner. We all divvied up the school so that we made sure everybody had a representative this year. But we did that, and Liberty and Benicia Middle School as well. And it's just, you know, what's so special to get to do, and I wish everybody could get to go to one school to the other, is you see the personality of the schools begin to come out, and they're all magnificent in their own little way, because you've all got your own characteristic and who you are. And I think that's part of what makes Benicia so special, is the fact that gets fostered, and it gets to be, it's okay to do that. So some of the other things that I did this week also is I joined Dr. Beatson with the District Curriculum Council. She had her kickoff meeting this year, and we're going to be talking about the new LCAP. So that was the beginnings of that conversation and the process and what's going to look like there. We went into the city and the district meeting last night. I had the privilege of showing up and being part of that conversation. And I have to tell you, I never sat in one spot and felt so proud of our district, and I have to say of our city. I mean, it was pretty amazing, the leadership that was there from our city, how quickly and how warmly they were embracing the children in our community and the efforts that's going on in the skitties. And I was just feeling this sense of, it's going to be okay. There's villages coming together, and this is really what we want to see for our town and for our kids. And, you know, I have to give a special thanks and kudos to Leslie and your team, Stephanie and Lisa. It was flawless. It was amazing. Their handouts were incredible. The PowerPoint was great. And the conversation between all of these different people that were educators, non-educators, it was rich. It was a very rich experience, and I look forward to hearing and involving myself in more of those, because I know our kids are going to win. You guys are going to come out the winners in this conversation. So it was really wonderful. I also just want to put a plug out now that we figured out we are part of the chamber. So to my, we are, you know, we figured that out this past spring, that in fact, we shouldn't find a way for us to engage in city activities and committees. We were doing a little research and we found out Mrs. Jensen actually said, oh, you are a member of chamber. We just never, okay, so we just never got engaged. So we got engaged this spring, and what's coming up, what I see being advertised now are socials every quarterly, I believe, for the chamber. So I'm going to put it out to my colleagues at the board that we, whenever we can, that we make a presence there as well. So, because if they're going to participate and support us, I think we need to have our presence out there as well. So just putting that one out there for you as well. And you can all come with us, okay?
The only problem is most of their meetings are on the same Thursday night that we have a board meeting.
Well, maybe we need to have our board meeting there. Okay, we'll work on that. Yeah, the thought is good, but I just want to put that out there, that now that we know we can. How's
There was
that?
nice event at the end of the year.
Yeah, it was a wonderful event at the end of the year. So anyways, I want to thank everybody, because there is not one of my colleagues that has not been running around and supporting schools and being present. And to all of you, I want to say thank you, because it's been a busy start, but I think it's been a fun start and a rewarding start. So, okay, with that, we're going to move on to comments from the members of the public. So members of the public may address the board at a regular meeting on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards may be completed requesting to address the board. They are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak at regular meetings on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Do we have any speakers? Oh, no one wants to talk to us today. Okay, fine. Let's move on to the consent calendar, and this is all matters that are listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine, excuse me, and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled or discussed. Do I have a motion from the board to approve the consent calendar as it is defined?
I move that we approve the consent calendar as designed.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I see a resolution as well, so there's two resolutions, actually. There's a resolution on appropriation of funds for the GAM limit, so that has to be a roll call vote, correct?
We'll just do them all in the consent with a roll call vote.
Okay, so we'll just do it all in the roll call vote? Okay, so this time we need to do a roll call vote. So Mrs. Jensen?
President Ferrucci,
Yes.
Trustee Holguin,
Yes.
Trustee Maselli,
Yes.
Trustee Moss,
Yes.
Trustee Zeta.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to
We have
13.
gifts.
I'm sorry.
We have a gift.
We have a gift. Okay, I am so sorry. Please share.
We have a gift from Mozart, Einstein, and Me, proprietor Stan Houston. He has donated 4 sets of snare drums to the schools. And so we want to thank him for that gift.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, now we can move on to discussion items. And the first one is a report and discussion on actual enrollment numbers. Mr. Rahal.
Good evening. So here we are a few days after Labor Day. So we're in our about 3rd week of school, and good news on the enrollment front. So even though we are down enrollment, we're not down by as much as we had been projecting. So we did stay on top of making sure our enrollment numbers were accurate. We were able to work with our school sites and accept a few more inter-district agreements, which kept our enrollment numbers up. And so we are still down about 30 students. We were actually thinking we'd be down by more than double that amount. And what happened is over the last few years at Benicia Middle School and Benicia High School, we were seeing a decline. And those 2 schools, when we compare what was on Tuesday, so the day after Labor Day, everybody should be back by now. They were very close, almost exact to what it was about a year ago in October. October's our official state enrollment count numbers. And so we, as the bigger upper classes roll out and graduate, we are backing them in with lower grade level class enrollment lists. But we were able to hold on to the middle and high school students, and then also take, like I said, a few more inter-district agreements. Not a considerable amount more. The percentage is still around 10% of our enrollment is from inter-district agreements. So as we look at the different grade levels, right now in our school district, we have elementary grade levels of about 300 kids at every grade level. Some are a little bit less, some are a little bit more, but around 300. And then at the middle school level, at 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're close to 350 per grade level. Some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less. And then at Benicia High School, we're at about 385 students at 9th through 12th grade level. So as our students move through our grade levels, we get more students at the grade levels at middle school, and then a little bit more at the high school level. So good news. So we will monitor our enrollment. We assume that these kids are here. We compare that to we do actual student counts every day, and then we also look at attendance. So if this enrollment holds, we will be able to update our budget at our first interim report that we bring back to you in December. So right now, with that declining enrollment, that would impact our outer years, not necessarily our current year, because we get a hold harmless clause from the state in regards to if we have declining enrollment. And I'll show you that on a slide in the budget presentation. So yes, good news on the enrollment front. Still declining, but not as much as we thought.
Not as much. That's huge. So, Mr. Rahal, I have a question. At some point, can we get the breakdown per elementary site to see how they fall in relationship to each other?
Yeah, we have basically 3 of our elementary schools are, I'm going to just round to, they're about 475 students, give or take. And then our largest elementary school is Joe Henderson School, and they're about 500 and actually I might have that number. Yeah, Joe Henderson School is actually about 562. And our other schools, Mary Farmer is at 453. And Robert Simple is almost exactly the same at 449. And Matthew Turner's kind of in the middle there at 475. And I mentioned Joe Henderson is our largest school at 562.
Jim, there was a rumor I was approached with that we were going to close another elementary school. I told them that hadn't come across my desk, and I thought maybe I'd see it if that was planned. So, but is there any discussion of that anywhere along the lines? That's none.
I'm not aware of any discussions to close an elementary school. No.
No. Yes, that's what I suspected. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody was wondering.
Thank you.
We don't want to go through that.
We don't want to do that.
No.
No. So does anybody else have any questions of Mr. Rahal? Okay. All right, Mr. Rahal, thank you for the good news, the positive news. We appreciate that. Yes, and we'll see you back with the budget. Okay. All right. 13.2, we're going on to the first readings of the board policy regarding complaints, energy and water, environmental safety, dress and grooming, absences, and bullying. Are there any comments from our board members who sit on this committee or anything we should be aware of?
Basically, I did meet with Dr. Young to go over the policies, and there were some updates in our. I guess I would say our policies overall have been, in good standing in terms of how we handle things from bullying, looking at attendance, but we did make some clarity, especially around the attendance or the absences for students. And so just making it so that 72-hour notifications, that parents would have that amount of time to basically report their absences. So in general, like I said, our policies were pretty up to date, but we're just making sure that we're in and we've made the changes accordingly. So even around the bullying, there's a little bit more specifications around including the cyber part of bullying, and then making sure that we have systems in place to really support students, and then also protect them as well. So.
Oh, and I am trusting a lot of these are because of the law changes that are coming.
Correct.
This time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other comments or discussions
And
about
just as a reminder to the community, so we have the board policy review committee. We're actually very disciplined about that. We meet once a month. We keep up with the updates from CSBA, and we continue to stay after it. So we're pretty on top of it. So thank you for that summary, Dr. Morris.
Okay. All right, now we're going to move on to the non-consent action items. And the first one is a consideration and approval of a variable term waiver request. And that must be Dr. Gill.
Yes, thank you. One of our goals is always to make sure we are compliant with credentials and all the other legal requirements, and we do whatever it takes to make sure our teachers are compliant, so we help them do with paperwork and so on. So Miss Durance is a medical careers teacher at Benicia High School. She's in the second year of clearing her credential, CTE credential. This is the request that I had brought to you last year as well, and you had approved it. So because she has, we have to wait until she gets students in her classroom to see if she has any EL students. This year she has 3 EL students, therefore she needs a certificate of completion of staff development waiver to teach EL students. In order for us to apply for that waiver, we have to show that the board has approved it during a public meeting. Once you approve it, we will be able to complete her paperwork, which will be literally tomorrow morning. And so we're just requesting for you to complete it because she will be completing her clear credential by the end of this school year.
Great. Are there any comments or questions from the, okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the variable term waiver request.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the waiver request is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, 14.2 is consideration and approval of the appointment of a bond oversight committee member. Mr. Rahu?
Yeah, we are happy to bring forward, as recommended by the superintendent, to ask the board to appoint Andre Lewis to our Benicia Unified School District Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. That's our committee that oversees our facility bond expenditures. And he would join the committee as a member active in a business organization representing the business community in our district. Mr. Lewis is and has been active in Rotary, I believe, also the chamber, and I believe he will be, I believe, the president, if not at least an officer in Rotary in the coming years. Very active in the community and the business groups. He does have a student at our Benicia High School, and then I think he also has some older kids as well. So we're excited. He also his personal work involves publishing books, I believe. Yeah, it's educational books and others. So we're excited to have Mr. Lewis join our oversight committee. Recently 2 of our committee members termed out. They served consecutive terms and no longer could serve on the committee. So we are still pursuing other applicants for the other position.
Okay. Tim, could you remind us again how the committee is broken up? I know certain people have to meet certain categories.
Yeah, we have, there's a 7-member committee, and Mr. Lewis would be the business committee. There's a position open for a taxpayers association. There is also a position open for the senior citizens organization in town. We have 2 at-large members, and then there is a parent member and a second parent member who's active in a PTA.
Thank you. And each of them serves 2 years on their term.
Yeah, everyone serves 2-year terms, and they can serve for, I believe, at least 2 consecutive terms. I'll check the bylaws, or it could be 3 consecutive terms.
And their role is to review our bond expenditures by law to be sure that we are in fact meeting the wording of, in fact, the bond that was passed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Let's move. Oh, no, wait. Do I have a motion to approve our bond oversight committee member, Andre Lewis?
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of the Bond Oversight Committee member.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Welcome to Mr. Lewis. Okay, 14.3 is consideration and approval of the 2018-19 unaudited actuals with the 2019-2020 budget for the Benicia Unified School District.
Very good. This item is for your action, as well as we do every September after we have officially closed the books. Our financial year ended on June 30th, right towards the end of the school year. And we close our books and put our reports together. They're called unaudited because our auditors will come out in October to finish their audit, and they'll use this unaudited report to finalize their audit, which they bring back to you in December for your review and approval. So our unaudited actuals kind of roll into our budget, and we have what our revenues are for this 19-20 year. We're at $48.4 million. We're reminded that the majority of our revenues come from the state of California through the local control funding formula. So the base amount from the LCFF is about 81%. And then we also get a supplemental piece to serve our lower income students from lower income families that are English learners or in a foster or homeless family situation. The other revenues come from the state. There's also, about $1.2 million in federal funds, which is mostly from our federal government for special ed, and then also our local other at 2.6 million. We actually also put any of our state special ed funds in there because we get that locally through our SELPA group. So I do want to point out this is our first year. We are budgeting for the what is called the STRS and Purrs on behalf payment. So in the prior years, we have recorded that only at the close of the books, and this year we've talked with our auditors, and it is a better way to report out throughout the entire year about what this STRS and Purrs on behalf payment is. And what it is the state of California, outside of our school district budget, they pay and contribute to STRS, to the retirement system for some of our employees. And so what we're required to do on our financial statements is we're required to record that as a revenue, as if the state gave us that money and then immediately turned around and we record the same exact amount as an expenditure into that retirement system. So we're required to report those separately as a revenue in from the state and an expenditure out to the retirement system. So I do have it listed here as STRS and Purrs, which is for our certificated employee retirement system and our classified employee retirement system. However, in 1920, there is no projected Purrs on behalf payment. In 2018-19, the one from last year, that was the first and only year through Governor Newsom where the state actually made a payment into the Purrs classified retirement system. So that's been categorized as a one-time contribution from the state into the Purrs retirement system to help get that retirement system back on track to meet its financial obligations. So we have our revenues in the bottom left. We're just reminded that here in our community, when we receive the money from the state for the local control funding formula, the LCFF, some of that is provided through our local property taxes. We get about 39% of that through all of the local property taxes that we pay, and then the state backfills the rest from the state budget. So in our community, there's other communities where their property tax is so big that it's larger than the LCFF amount, and that's called the basic aid district. So if you are in such community, you would be able to keep those extra property tax dollars for your schools. But in our community, we aren't very close, and it would take a pretty major event to make that happen. So, and I did want to just, as I'm going through here, it's not on the list, but if these numbers come from the official SACS report that we file with the state, with the county office and the state of California. So if you were to compare last year and this year, there's a couple bigger percentage changes. And so on our other state revenue, if we compare the two numbers from this year and last year, the difference is about 48% difference, or $3.3 million. And the biggest chunk of that is $1.8 million for the STRS on behalf payment. So I mentioned we have that in our budget, and the reason why it's less is because the state gave us what we usually get for the STRS on behalf payment, plus a one-time bump in 2018-19. So the one-time bump for these retirement on behalf payments, it happened for both STRS and Purrs. And the information we have right now is that the Governor Newsom and the state isn't proposing to continue that one-time piece. It's only proposing to continue the regular ongoing piece for STRS. So more to come. We report back in January when the governor proposes a new budget, and then in May when it gets revised. But the big reason why our state revenues are down are because of that. Also because last year was the last year for state one-time funds of about $890,000 that came into us from Governor Brown. And under Governor Newsom's new budget, that's not happening this year. And then the third biggest piece was the state also gave us a low performing student block grant of over $500,000. And so we got that cash last year, but didn't spend it. And we're not spending that to this year. So that kind of explains some of the big chunks of why those state revenues are a little bit lower in this current budget year. The other reduction was in our other local revenues. That was down by about, the percentage is 23%. And most of that has to do with a reduction in our SELPA, some of our special ed funding. We received some one-time funds through the SELPA last year. We are hopeful we might get some more one-time funds this year. If we do, we can update that at our first interim report, but we don't have official reports out that we will be getting that. I don't have any information that says we would get as much. There was kind of a catch-up one-time amount from several years in 18-19, so I would be surprised if we got the same one time. There was also some, we also record donations as we actually get them, so we would report less donations in our budget right now until we get harder information on that. So as we go to the next slide, we look at what our expenditures are budgeted, and you can see our expenditures are budgeted at 51 million. And so just real quickly, if you were to compare it to the last page, you can see that's more than our revenues, because after we've closed our books, we're able to post those carryovers that we did not spend in the last fiscal year. So we have some big chunks that carry over. One of the biggest ones being the state one-time funds. We mentioned the revenue isn't ongoing, but because we got so much of that over the past 3 years, as a district, we decided to basically bank that and have a multi-year plan to spend it over the next several years. So we're actually spending those now. Our expenditures, they fall anywhere between 85 and 90% in the salary and benefits of our employees, providing the education and the related services to our students. And then the remaining 10 to 15% is spent on our supplies and services. So also added, as I mentioned earlier, we have added that STRS and Purrs on behalf retirement payment from the state. That's the expenditure side. So if you were to flip those 2 pages, you'd see that those 2 numbers match to the dollar. Okay, on some of the bigger expenditure percentage changes, if you were to look at this actual SACS report, if you were to look at the benefits line, again, that's down by about 5.7%. Again, the major reason why the benefits went down is because of that one-time STRS and Purrs on behalf payment. So we have some increases on our 4,000s, which are our supplies and books. So the reason why our 4,000 line items for books and supplies is up is we did not use all of our book money. We get a separate pot of money from lottery. So we didn't have a huge book adoption this year, but I have a feeling that Dr. Beatson is working with the schools. There are some new adoptions coming up and piloting that we will be able to hold the money aside and pay for the books at the right time, so it doesn't get lost. There was additional one-time lottery funds that came to us towards the end of the year in fourth quarter, and that's just determined by how many lottery tickets get sold each year. So buy lottery tickets. Okay. There was on the line 6,000 for capital outlay. It says 82% reduction. It went from 177,000 down to 30,000, but that really has to do with, that's on our facility routine restricted maintenance account. If we buy big pieces of equipment that are $5,000 or more, or if we buy a replacement truck or replacement vehicle, it would be on that capital outlay line, which we're not budgeting at this point to spend. We'd spend it up in the 4,000 for supplies. That can change at first interim. We'll kind of update that over the next few months. So after we look at that, what ends up in our fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. So looking forward, if the budget holds like it is, there'd be $6.9 million in our fund balance, and what that is made up of is the state recommends a 3% reserve for any economic uncertainties, and we have a local board policy reserve that adds about $2.3 million to that. And if we add those two reserves together, that is about the equivalent of 1 month of our payroll. It's a guide. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it would be used for. If an economic downturn happened, it would be over time and it wouldn't disappear overnight. But we needed to set a certain target, and we've been able to maintain both the 3%, and that's about the equivalent of 4% over the last few years. And then in addition, we have what's left over for the one-time carryovers, and then we do have a few restricted programs that we don't have a plan to spend for this year, and there's some Medi-Cal funds in that pot of money, as well as some donations. The remaining slides just remind us some of the big highlights as we put our budget together. This slide, since 2014-15, when the state became aware that our retirement plans are struggling a little bit to meet future obligations, they started increasing how much we pay as a school district. It also has increased how much the employees, future retirees pay as well. And then for STRS, it also has increased how much the state contributes into those plans as well. So over the years, it was flat for a very long time, and in the STRS retirement system going up 1.85%, this year only 0.82%, another increase, and then it's projected to kind of go down a little bit. Those percentages change each year as it gets closer, but for now we can budget what we know. And then on the Purrs side, we have about a 1.66% increase in 1920. So those are additional costs that we're required to pay into those systems that if it was a stable rate, we wouldn't have to, but we do. Our next slide just reminds us what are the key fiscal factors that we look at and help us determine what our financial situation is. So the first one is we kind of start with our known salary costs. We have salary schedules for our employees, and as they move up the salary set schedule, there's a cost associated with that. We feel pretty good on the 2019-20 number. We've adjusted that for retirees and people that have left. We'll take another look at that because since September and we have actual people in jobs, maybe we'll be able to adjust that a little bit more. We can do the same thing for the outer years as those years get closer. I don't know if we'll have enough to do it at first interim, but maybe second. And so hopefully if there are additional retirees, we can factor in those savings there. And then also the increase for those retirement costs related to STRS and Purrs. We have some other miscellaneous adjustments that we make depending on what we need to do in our budget. The third section is our student enrollment and our student attendance. And I wanted to just take a second just to remind us why those numbers are a little bit different. So we look at enrollment because that basically drives our attendance, and we get funded based on students attending school, not just being enrolled. So it doesn't matter if you're sick or any reason why you're not present. We don't. If you're present for part of the day, we do get credit for that day. So, and what happens is, for example, in 2019-20, we had been projecting a larger declining enrollment at about 74. And my earlier report shows we're not that, we're better. So we can update that at first interim. And so what the state says is, okay, school district, if you're going to be down enrollment, that basically means you're going to be down in attendance too, because you have less kids. But they give you a 1-year hold harmless. And so we basically won't get the hit for that declining enrollment until next year. And that's why if you look at those numbers, in 2019-20, if we were to have a student enrollment decline of 74, that would translate to about a 71 loss in average daily attendance in ADA. So if we can update those numbers next time. So we have about a 96% average daily attendance rate, which means about 96% of our kids show up to school every day. Pretty good. We can always be better.
So the 19 listed here is based on last year's declining enrollment. So we take that hit in this round.
We will take that hit in this round.
That's what that.
We are about 25% unduplicated student percentage that are from lower socioeconomic families or English learners or foster and homeless. So about one out of every 4 students fall into one of those categories. We did make some adjustments in our staffing, reducing for some instructional coaches. And then at the middle and high school, we also have reduced some FTE. What happens is you start the year with your staff, and we've got them for the whole year. So if the students don't show up, you still have those staff on hand. So we were able to make some adjustments. Again, that's kind of like a catch up as well. And the last one just reminds us what the state uses as a cost of living adjustment. The current one, or the budget year, settled in at 3.26%, and they are projecting 3% for next year. So as December and January comes closer, we'll see if that cost of living sticks at right around 3%. We have a couple different ways to look. The top section shows whether or not we're operating in a surplus or a deficit. Just because you see a negative number up there doesn't mean it's a bad thing. In this case, it's not a bad thing. It's just that we're spending our carryover funds in the 2019-20 year. So our expenditures are more because those are carrying over, as is the case basically for 2021. So we're operating pretty much at a break even if we were to remove all the one-time items. And at the bottom of this page, it's just another graphical way of showing we have our mandatory reserves for the state and for a local board policy, and then our additional carryover reserves for restricted programs and one time. The bar chart is just a different visual of the previous slide. And the last one, over to the right, this just tracks our annual operating surplus or deficit each year and our fund balance over the years, just to show some trends. We try to keep that line. That's a tough one to keep stable because it really depends on when you spend your carryovers. And almost always you're going to have carryovers that will either cause it to go up because you're going to spend them later or go down because you're spending them in that year. And then just in summary, in the other attachment, our report tonight, our unaudited actuals and our current 1920 budget. It is a positive certification. And it's based on what the legislature actually passed back in June. No big changes since then. We're using our LCFF and maintaining our district fund reserves. We just a slide to always remind us, what is that LCFF, local control funding formula? It's how the state of California funds our public schools. Right now, in the current year, Benicia receives $9,155 per student. So we are actually one of the lower, if not the lowest, funded per student in Solano County. And that's basically due to our unduplicated count. Our students in one of those other subgroups is lower than the other cities, so they get more because of that. Okay, and in order to get those LCFF funds, we must provide our local control accountability plan, the LCAP, and Dr. Beatson leads us through that, and she'll be starting that process soon for a 3-year renewal. Yes, and she has a committee that helps her along the way. Okay, so we're asking for your approval tonight. We pass this along, we file it with the County Office of Education as well as the CDE, and also pass it off to our external financial auditors. As I mentioned earlier, they come back in October to complete their audit, and then they present their audit report in December.
Are there any comments or questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve the 2018-19 unaudited actuals along with the 2019-20 budget?
I move that we approve the 1920 unaudited actual, or 18-19 unaudited actuals and the 1920 budget.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the budget's passed. Thank you. Okay. I'm just going to ask everybody to keep their eye. I know I've been pushing out a whole lot of CSBA stuff your way. There's a couple of budgets that are surfacing. I mean, a couple of bills that are surfacing, and they have to be voted on by the 13th of September. That could impact some of the schools. So as I get any bulletins, I will pass them forward. So I'm just thinking we should keep our eye on that for a bit. So, all right. So with that all said, the meeting is adjourned.